Hello, welcome back to Only Pistols. Today we're having a look at a Feinwerkbau C25. This is a single shot 10 metre target pistol powered by CO2. Let's start by having a look at the markings on it. On this side, Feinwerkbau's production site at Obendorf for the production site. On this side, the low pressure mark, model C25, the caliber 4.5177, serial number, and made in Germany. The sights there are marked for windage and elevation, and you can also adjust the width of the rear sight notch here by quite simply using a pen or anything there really just to move that round, and that just worm drive to drive the rear sight element to give you a different width. So I've found this before, said this before about these. It's quite a busy sight with different materials, so you get different levels of light off of it. So if I'm using it in competition, I'll use a carbide black on this just to get it all to be one shade, and it makes it very usable. It is a lovely wide sight, so it's very easy to use and very easy to see. The foresight element is standard Feinwerkbau foresight element. You have got a little steel blade that's held in place by a screw in the end there. So you undo that. That means you can take the blade out, and you can change that between any one of 6 different blade sizes. On this one, it's carried in an air stripper. So the idea is that the pellet will leave the end of the muzzle, and the CO2 will be vented out through this birdcage arrangement. And then when the pellet exits the end, it will come out into clean air. This is got a step on it, so it's held in place by that grub screw. So you basically slide it on till it reaches the shoulder, and then you do the grub screw up, and that just sets everything square. Because this is a development of the C20, the barrel has got a flat on it, so if you had the more standard C series foresight, you would be able to adjust that for the length if you wanted to change the length of sight radius. Otherwise, construction, steel rifled barrel, steel weight holder. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the weights, but the balance for me is perfect anyway. Aluminium action and frame, steel top cover, aluminium for the rear sight, and aluminium for the CO2 canister, and a steel trigger guard. The trigger is adjustable for just about absolutely everything. So you can turn the trigger shoe one way up or the other, depending on how you want it. You can change the trigger shoe side to side. You can also move the trigger bar that the trigger shoe sits on side to side, as well as the reach and first, second stage, and just everything. And it's a really good trigger. The grip on this one is a Beech copy of the Feinwerkbau grip with a palm shelf. It's otherwise exactly the same as a Feinwerkbau grip because it was a copy of it, and includes the ability to adjust the rake by 10 degrees. The other thing you've got here, you just see this, is a slot that I can't get the light into it, but in there is a screw head that you can adjust to vary the preload on the trigger spring, on the hammer spring, which gives you an ability to vary the velocity slightly. The duckbill, as I call it, extension for the grip, just gives you a nice grip in the hand, and it's a really good, really comfortable grip. Controls otherwise, you've got a dry fire facility, so cock the action and then push that through like that, close that up, and that now gives you dry fire, and it's exactly the same as you would have from using the pistol. And it's one of those triggers you really don't feel it go, it's gone. So what you've got in here then is this sledge up here, the loading probe, which is hollow, and that when you draw that back, that's what is pulling the hammer back and setting the sear. So that's just ease that if I actually get it to set. Okay, so that's set and that's there. CO2 powered, and probably the most obvious thing about the C25s is the CO2 cylinder. It's gone from the C20, where you had the cylinder stuck out the front, to a dumpy bottle. And in common with all Feinwerkbau CO2 cylinders, you've got a pressure weight, you've got a production date, so April 91. You've got a max fill weight, so 41 kilograms of CO2, and it says you've got to use carbon dioxide. It gives you a dry weight and a total weight. So really, really simple to identify, and the Feinwerkbau logo. This is the correct one for this pistol, but I also am able to use a later one. So this is a 95 production one with exactly the same information on it from a later CO2 pistol. And it just means I can take a couple of these to a competition, and you've got in excess of 200 shots per fill. So you get a lot of shots for your fill. Good thing about this is that also, with it being a dumpy shape, it's much easier to fill. With the standard cylinder CO2 cartridges, I find that I need to chill them down to get them to fill full weight. With the dumpy shape, you don't need to fill it. You'll get a full weight in there as long as they're not actually hot. So that's another benefit to using those. Implications then on the pistol. Why do they do this? So the reason for this is, if you've got a CO2 cylinder sitting out this way, you've got liquid CO2 in it, there's a danger you could get liquid CO2 into the action. Now, they do have a stilling chamber here, so liquid CO2 should come in and evolve to a stable gas before it's then released by the hammer hitting the valve open. But if you sit it like this, then there's even less chance of getting any CO2 up in here. So in theory, this makes it even more stable than they are anyway. The other advantage is the weight. The weight is more back in your hands, so it gives you the ability to choose whether you want to put a lot of weight out on the muzzle, or whether you want to keep the weight, as it were, back in your hand. That said, I find the balance on these much nicer. If I do want to add weight, then obviously I can, but I find the balance really good. So how do you actually load it? Having put your CO2 on, which is quite simply screwed in place, cock the pistol, push it off of dry fire, drop the pellet on the loading tray, and the loading probe's hollow, so the CO2 is released when the hammer hits the back of the valve. The CO2 is released up into the hollow at the back of the loading probe, which has already pushed the pellet into the rifling, and then the CO2 is directed directly behind the pellet. So you simply close that down, it just locks over center, hold it in place, take up the first stage, and it fires. Like I said, that trigger is absolutely fabulous. You really don't feel it release, but there's a definite step, so you know you've reached the point, and a little bit more effort and it goes. So again, just very simple. I mean, it's just so easy. Close it down. It fires. So the trigger's lovely. Accuracy, yeah, it's a 10-meter pistol. By this stage, Feinwerkbau have really sorted this out. They are spectacularly accurate. I suspect if I put it in a clamped device, it would just shoot a one-hole group. As it is, it's got a nut behind the butt, which is me. So you can see that you've got a reasonable good group there. I've pulled a couple. And the other good thing about this, which is, that isn't good, that's me, I pulled it. But I knew I'd pulled it. I was able to call it because the pistol is so precise. When the trigger goes, you absolutely see, if you're doing the correct follow through, you see where it's gone. I knew, pulled that one. So yeah, it's a really good pistol to shoot, and very, very usable, very accurate. So last bit about this, C25, this was the last of Feinwerkbau's single shot CO2 powered pistols, and it carried on in production for the longest of all of them. So this was in production for a full 7 years, and bear in mind that all the previous ones had been kind of 1 or 2 years only, and this stayed in production for the longest. it's a very refined pistol. It all works. Everything's there. Everything works. The trigger is lovely. The loading system is really easy. The sights are good. The filling system is good. If you're using CO2, if you like using CO2, then this is absolutely a brilliant pistol for you. And there were a lot of people who got used to CO2 by this stage, so they got it set up. They just wanted to hang on to it. Why not? So there you go. The Feinwerkbau C25, a single shot CO2 powered pistol, produced really to 98. So, you know, past the age of the time where pretty much everybody else was moving to high pressure air, but still absolutely wonderful to shoot. If you can get one, or even just borrow one to try it, have a go. They are absolutely fabulous and as good now as the day it was made, if a little bit worn through use. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please click like, subscribe, share, tell other people about it. And otherwise, I'll see you again soon with another pistol. Thanks very much.